The rain came down in sheets, drumming against the pavement and rattling the neon sign above the little diner as Ethan locked the front door. It had been another long shift, his back ached, his hands smelled faintly of coffee and grease, and all he wanted was to get home to tuck Lily into bed. He turned the key, pulled his jacket tighter, and was about to head for his old pickup when he spotted her. A girl sat on the curb a few feet away, soaked through, her arms wrapped tightly around a worn backpack. Her dark hair clung to her face, and tears mingled with raindrops as she tried to hide her sobs. Ethan slowed, his father's instinct stronger than his tiredness. "You okay, miss?" he asked gently, crouching down so he wasn't towering over her. "You'll catch your death out here in this weather." She shook her head quickly, almost as if she were afraid to speak. Her lips trembled, and she pulled the backpack closer, like it was the only thing she had left in the world. Ethan hesitated. He wasn't a man with much to give, just a small house, an old truck, and a diner that barely kept the bills paid. But he knew what it meant to feel lost and alone. He thought of Lily, sleeping safe at home, and his chest tightened. "Look," he said, his voice steady but kind. "I don't know what you're running from, and I won't ask unless you want to tell me. But I've got a spare room. Nothing fancy, just a bed and 4 walls. It's warm, and it's safe. You don't have to stay in the rain." She blinked at him, startled, like she couldn't quite believe his words. Silence stretched, broken only by the hiss of the rain and the buzz of the neon light. Finally, her voice cracked through the night. Why would you do that? For a stranger?" Ethan gave a tired half-smile. "Because I'd hope someone would do the same for my little girl if she were in your shoes." For a moment, she seemed to crumble, her defenses slipping away. She nodded, barely whispering, "Thank you." Ethan rose and extended a hand. She hesitated, then slowly slipped her trembling fingers into his. And just like that, the stranger in the rain was no longer just a shadow on the curb, she was someone he'd chosen to help, without knowing how much that choice would change both their lives. The spare room hadn't been used in years, not since Ethan's younger brother had crashed there during a rough patch. It smelled faintly of dust and old wood, but Ethan had done his best, fresh sheets on the bed, a small lamp on the nightstand, and a quilt his mother had sewn before she passed. When Ava stepped inside, her eyes widened slightly, as though even this humble space felt like a palace compared to what she had left behind. She placed her worn backpack carefully on the floor, almost reverently, as if it held everything she owned. "You can stay as long as you need," Ethan said, leaning against the doorframe. "No rent, not until you get on your feet. Just, help out a little around the house if you can." She turned to him, startled, as though she wasn't used to kindness without strings attached. I don't want to be a burden." "You won't be." His voice carried a quiet certainty. "Trust me, Lily will be thrilled to have someone new around. She's been missing a mother's touch." Something flickered in Ava's eyes, sadness, maybe guilt. She gave a small nod, whispering, "Thank you." "Really?" Over the next few days, Ava kept mostly to herself. She was polite, almost too careful, never leaving things out of place. Ethan noticed how she folded the towels with precision, how she spoke softly at the dinner table, and how she carried herself with a kind of grace that didn't quite match her threadbare clothes. At night, though, the walls carried whispers. Ethan would sometimes pass her door on the way to check on Lily and hear muffled sobs. Once, he caught fragments of words, names, apologies, a father's name repeated like a wound she couldn't close. Ethan would pause, hand hovering near the doorknob, but he always stepped away. He knew what it meant to want privacy in your pain. Lily, on the other hand, adored her immediately. On the second morning, she tugged Ava into the kitchen to show her drawings, laughing brightly when Ava praised every wobbly crayon line. It didn't take long before Lily's small hand was constantly finding Ava's, pulling her into games or begging her to read bedtime stories. Watching them from the doorway, Ethan felt something stir in his chest, relief, maybe, that someone could bring that light back into Lily's eyes. Still, he couldn't shake the curiosity gnawing at him. Who was this girl, really? How had someone so clearly raised with refinement ended up alone, crying in the rain outside his diner? He never asked. Not yet. The morning sunlight streamed through the blinds as Ethan fried eggs in the diner's kitchen, humming absently while Lily colored at the counter. He almost didn't notice Ava slipping in behind him, sleeves rolled up, hair tied back in a loose knot. "Can I help?" she asked softly. Ethan glanced over his shoulder. "You don't have to. You're a guest." Her lips curved in the faintest smile. "Then let me be a useful guest." Before he could argue, she grabbed an apron from the hook, tied it neatly, and moved with a quiet confidence to the sink. The way she washed dishes, quick, precise, careful, made Ethan pause. Most people who helped him rushed, leaving streaks or soap bubbles clinging to the plates. Ava handled every dish like it was fine china. Soon, she was out front, balancing trays of steaming coffee and plates of pancakes as if she'd done it her whole life. Customers noticed. A regular, old Mr. Dawson, leaned over to Ethan and said, "New hire? She's got class, that one. Never thought I'd see manners like that in your place." He chuckled, patting Ethan on the back. Ethan laughed, though quietly he wondered the same thing. Ava moved with a natural poise, her words measured but warm. When a customer dropped his fork, she knelt swiftly to pick it up, offering him another with a polite, "Here you go, sir," that sounded more like something from a five-star restaurant than a small-town diner. Meanwhile, Lily tugged at Ava's apron, holding up a crayon masterpiece of a stick figure family. "That's Daddy, that's me, and that's you." Ava's eyes shimmered as she crouched down to Lily's level. "I get to be in your family picture?" "Of course," Lily said, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. Ava laughed, a light, genuine sound that Ethan hadn't heard from her before. For a brief moment, she didn't look like a girl lost in the world. She looked like someone who belonged. That night, after closing, Ava insisted on making pancakes for Lily before bed. She worked the batter with practiced hands, and when Ethan raised an eyebrow, she only shrugged. "My mother taught me before she got too busy." Her voice trailed off, but she quickly shifted back into a smile as she slid the plate in front of Lily. Ethan leaned against the counter, watching as his daughter devoured the pancakes and giggled at Ava's silly impressions of storybook characters. He couldn't help but notice the contrast, the way Ava's laughter lit up the room, yet the shadows in her eyes lingered when she thought no one was watching. There was more to her. More than she was willing to tell. But for now, Ethan let it be. For the first time in a long time, the house felt alive again. It was a slow afternoon at the diner, the kind Ethan didn't mind. The rain had cleared, leaving the air fresh and cool, and Lily was busy doodling with crayons at a corner booth while Ava refilled salt shakers. The television mounted above the counter played softly in the background, news, the kind Ethan usually ignored. But then he heard a name. Richard Hale, CEO of Hale Enterprises, pleads for the safe return of his missing daughter. Ethan's head snapped up. On the screen, a polished photo appeared, a young woman in an elegant evening gown, her smile poised, her posture regal. Ethan's hand froze around the rag he was using to wipe the counter. His stomach tightened. It was her. Ava. He looked across the room where she stood, her back to the television, carefully twisting a salt cap as though the entire world wasn't about to unravel. His throat went dry. He didn't want to believe it, maybe it was just a resemblance, but the eyes, the smile, even the curve of her chin. It was her, without a doubt. The news anchor continued, missing for over 2 months, the heiress was last seen leaving a charity gala. Authorities suspect foul play, but her father remains hopeful she will return home safely. Ethan clicked the remote, muting the TV. His heart pounded. A CEO's daughter? A missing person plastered all over national television, living under his roof? He glanced at Lily, still humming to herself, innocent and unaware. "Ava," he said quietly, his voice rougher than he intended. She looked up, startled at the tone. "Yes?" Ethan hesitated, then gestured toward the darkened screen. That was you, wasn't it? Her face paled instantly. For a moment, she stood frozen, her hands tightening around the salt shaker until her knuckles whitened. She didn't answer. She didn't have to. The silence spoke louder than words. Ethan stepped closer, lowering his voice. Why didn't you tell me? Who you really are? Her chest rose and fell sharply, like each breath hurt. She set the shaker down with trembling fingers. Because if I had, you wouldn't have let me stay. Her eyes glistened as she looked at him, pleading. You would have seen the name. The money. The headlines. Not me. Ethan swallowed hard, torn between anger and sympathy. You're the daughter of one of the richest men in the country. And you were crying in the rain, outside my diner, why? Her voice cracked. Because in his world, I was a trophy. A business deal waiting to happen. Every smile rehearsed, every step planned. I couldn't breathe anymore. I just wanted to be seen as me. Not his daughter. Not an heiress. Just Ava. Ethan studied her face, the raw pain, the exhaustion, the desperate need for someone to believe her. For a long moment, he said nothing, only rubbed a hand across his jaw. He had taken her in because she was human, not because of who her father was. That part hadn't changed. But now, everything else had.